Good afternoon, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg here for a twofer on a Friday, 2 sessions of Facebook Live in the Sales Pro Network. As you know, I founded the Sales Pro Network to elevate the profession of sales. It's a place where salespeople can come and ask questions and get coaching from incredible experts, not just myself, but a lot of other fantastic people. You can share your successes, your challenges, and every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I do a Facebook Live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. But today, we've got a special guest, a second guest, and we made an exception. We're doing this at noon because I can't wait to introduce you to my new friend, Chaz Horn. Good afternoon, Chaz.
Jeff, awesome to be here. I'm excited.
Dude, I'm very excited to speak with you. Before we jump into the million questions that I have for you, could you just tell people a little bit about yourself and your journey? I know, or at least I think at one point you were homeless, and I'd also love you to share, if you would, what you learned from your mom.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's powerful. I might start crying on you guys. Okay. So
I'm hoping you do.
Awesome. Yay. Okay. Are you recording this, by the way?
I am.
Okay, awesome. Very cool. So let me give you a brief background. So at one point in my life, I was homeless. I was living in my car. Too ashamed to tell my family. I got my first B2B sales job. Ken Upton, my boss, soon-to-be mentor, hired me. It was 100% commission. I was 119 out of 119 salespeople. That means I was the last. I was making zero zilch nada. And it was all cold calls. And I mean, cold calls. If I didn't walk out of an office with a check, I wasn't going to get paid. Okay. And Ken had me over to his house one night. He didn't know I was homeless. He had me over for dinner. And I thought, cool. I don't think I've eaten in a couple of days at that point. And so I went over to his house. After dinner, he pulled me into the den, and I remember he was sitting in this chair with kind of a lamp that was green, kind of, if you could picture a master with his student. And so he turned to me and he said, Chaz, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? I'm like, what? I was really clueless. He goes, I know you're not making any money. Are you sick and tired of not making any money? I go, oh yeah. He goes, well, here's the secret. There is no secret. You got to follow the system. You got to follow the process. If you follow the system and if you follow the process, these 3 words changed my life. You can be. Then he followed up by being the #1 salesperson in the company, but I never heard that in my life. And so I was in a very critical environment. Never thought much of myself. So I followed the system. I followed the process. And so that was drilled into my head very early on. I did the cold calls. I did the script. And at the end of 30 days, I wasn't a #1 salesperson, but I was #3. I moved out of a place with automatic windows. So from there, I went from job to job to job, 8 different industries. I was always the top or #1 salesperson in the company. I hated cold calls. So I was always looking for doing things differently. The next job I had was a guy, the boss who used to work for Xerox. Are you familiar with Xerox? It was back then, Xerox was, you had to do 30 in-person cold calls a day. So I was expected to do 30 in-person cold calls a day. It was janitorial services, but the boss, the owner of the company, that was his mentality. And so I was always thinking of doing things differently. I go, do you want me to do 30 cold calls or do you want me to get qualified meetings? Because I can get qualified meetings with less than 10 cold calls. He goes, qualified meetings. I said, oh, cool. So I've always looked to doing things differently and to go from A to Z in less time by being more strategic and how I go about conversations. So to talk about my mom was my business mentor. She passed away in 2000, October 15th. She went from being an art teacher making $6,000 a year to becoming a real estate agent with no experience whatsoever. She was raising 3 boys. She didn't have any financial help from anybody. And so I saw my mom going from a place of not knowing how to support. She didn't have any support from my dad, who they went through a divorce, no financial support from anyone. She went from being $6,000 a year to an art teacher to being a real estate agent to being very successful to starting her own company, Jacqueline Horn Realty. So I got to experience that and watch that. And she would run it out of her house. So I'd always, Jacqueline Horn Realty. So I learned a lot from my mom during those years. So yeah, so I want to get into this. Do we have an audience? Anybody peeking in? I like to take people's questions. I like to talk with you and answer anyone's question. I love what I do. Can I say something really quick here?
Yeah.
Okay. The lesson that I've learned in sales, I know you say 40 years, right, Jeff? You've been in sales?
Almost 50.
50. So I don't know. I'm probably getting not close, maybe not close to 50, but a long time. But I will say over 25, but it's probably like over like 37. I guess it makes me feel old or whatever. The thing that I've learned that changes everything, and this is the first step in our marketing, in our sales process, it's the foundation, is having the right intention. I used to think that was total fluff. I had a mentor recently, like in the past 10 years, who would say, it's got to go with the right intention. You got to go with the right intention. But I'll tell you what, when you go with the right intention, it changes what you say and how you say it. Now, you need the sales skill set, but when you combine those, it is powerful, and you can engage people in a deeper way quicker than any tactic or sales technique. It really changes everything. Having the right intention, the intention to serve.
Just brilliant. And you are, it's almost as if this morning's interview, which ended at 11, is just continuing on, because this morning I interviewed a gentleman named Joe Nunziata, who wrote a book called Spiritual Selling. And he's talking about it's not necessarily about your skills. It's about your energy and your intention. So you're doing a beautiful job of continuing. Good afternoon, Don Levine. Thanks for joining us again. And good afternoon, Valerie Heffron. Thanks for joining in. If you guys have any questions as we go along, please type them into the comments and I'll read them out to Chaz. So that's an amazing story, Chaz. And something you said in there rang so true for me, that when I started at Encyclopedia Britannica, I knew really nothing about selling, and they had an amazing training system. And I very quickly became one of the top salespeople in the country out of 2,500. And there was only one reason for it. It had zero to do with my selling ability, because I had almost none at the time. It had to do with, I listened to everything they said and just did it. I was too stupid to know how to do anything else. And I figured, well, these guys must know what they're talking about. And truly, all I did was exactly what they told me to do. And after, I'm going to make this a very short story because I want to hear from you, but after the first weekend of going out to the field, there's a Monday morning.
I want to hear it. This is cool. If you can sell encyclopedias, you can sell anything. So go ahead.
I've heard that before. The truth is, it was actually pretty easy to sell, at least for me. The national average out of 2,500 salespeople was a 25% closing rate. I closed 85 because I was a true believer.
Wow.
I really believed that if people invested in these books, that their kids were going to do better in life. So at the Monday morning meeting, the first thing that happens is the boss goes around the room, and there must have been 30 plus salespeople plus 3 of us newbies. And it was always, how many sets did you sell? You know, you just go around the room and everybody say 2, 1, blank. And they got I happened to be the last person. The 2 newbies who started with me had blanked, and they got to me and how many sets did you sell, Jeff? And I said 10. And nobody, the experienced people, hadn't sold more than 3 over the weekend. And all eyes, 30 plus sets of eyes turned to me, and the boss said, "Did you say 10?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "How'd you do that?" I said, "Did I do something wrong?" Because again, too stupid to know the difference. He goes, "You didn't do anything wrong. What did you do?" I said, "Exactly what you taught me to do, word for word," because their training was videos. It was my manager came in every hour on the hour and put it, "How'd you like that video? Let me put in the next one." And for a week, I sat in a room just watching videos, did exactly what I was taught. So my point is, you talked about system, you find the system and you don't have to reinvent it. Do this, use the system, and there's gotta be a system. You like that one, huh, Chaz?
That is so, people make it so difficult. And if you, you know, you have steps. You have probably a sales process you go through. I have 7 steps in my sales process. And, you know, today we could talk about tabs. Those are the 4 things you have to have in place to be successful. And if you're not getting the meeting, you're not getting the sale, it's going to be because of one or more of those 4 things. But people make it so complicated because and this is what I do. I wasn't I guess I wasn't as coachable as you, because I was trying, and I think fear controlled me because I was afraid to do something new outside of my comfort zone. And that's usually what stops a lot of people. Because if you do something new outside of your comfort zone, it's outside of your comfort zone, and people stay in that comfort zone. Have you ever heard of flea training?
Well, that was one of my questions for you. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So
I've researched you, my friend.
all right, I can tell. So flea circus, you guys can Google it. I've never been to a flea circus, but I've researched this, and my brother tells me the story, and so I'm actually stealing this from him. It's true though. To have fleas in a flea circus, you need to train them. So how do they train them? They put them in a jar. Okay. This is actually glass, but imagine this is a jar. They put the fleas in the jar, and I don't know where you guys live, but fleas can jump pretty high, so they'll jump right out. So they put a lid in the jar, and so what happens? The fleas jump, 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 and they're hitting their head. Ow, 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 ow. Pretty soon, it's like this, right? Then the flea trainer takes the lid off the jar, and then the fleas can easily jump out, but they don't, because why? They've been conditioned from the pain of the past to stay in their little comfort zone. Okay. And so we bring that crap from our past into our present situation, and it keeps us from growing. We stay in our comfort zone, humans in general, because we fear getting out of our comfort zone. There's going to be a painful experience because of that pain. It doesn't make sense. And if you guys know the amygdala, that's the kind of the freak out part of the brain. And then you have the frontal cortex. That's kind of the rational part. They need to communicate together. Like the amygdala says, oh man, I'm going to die. You're not going to die. When you were 5, you stepped off a curb and you broke your leg. That was 25 years ago. But our brain takes that, whatever that incident was, someone yelled at you, someone screamed at you, whatever it was, into the present situation. What's really cool is when you jump out of the jar, which you get out of your comfort zone, you step into your potential, and life gets really good there. And that's where, when you pull the system and the process based on whatever sales process anybody that's listening to this is going through, or marketing strategy, when you follow it, and it's with someone that you know it's proven they're getting results, life gets good and you get results. It's so counterintuitive to do things partially your way and partially their way. That's a recipe for misery.
Yeah, I'm a big what's the worst that could happen guy. And I say that part of selling is a game of cojones. And for those of you who don't know what cojones are, it's the Irish word for chutzpah. You got to have cojones. And so for me, knocking on doors, to see if I could get a presentation and sell encyclopedias was like, what's the worst that could possibly happen?
Amen.
Somebody closes the door in my face. Somebody says, get the hell out of here. But the other thing that could happen is somebody says, oh yeah, I'd love to chat with you about that. And I also felt that I've got nothing better to do. And like you, straight commission. So I've got a chance of making a good living if I knock on this door, and I've got no chance if I don't. So for me, it was like, what's the worst that could happen? And I am a guy who hates looking bad, except I'm willing to. I don't like to be, and I don't mean physically. I mean, I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look foolish. But the fact is, I do stuff that's stupid, foolish, and idiotic all the time. And it's just what it is. Yeah, exactly right. What's the worst? So that's what I feel. Can we talk a little bit about tabs? Because I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, can I add one thing to what you're saying? Because it's really cool. I think it'll add some value to everyone else. You've got to be so fixated on the end result. Okay. I take ice baths every day. I don't like being in icy water, but it's amazing the way that it makes me feel. So I take an ice bath every day because it changes. You follow the system and the process, and you're going to be successful. You're going to get to the next step. You're going to be able to do X, Y, Z. So if you focus on where you're going and understand it's a step in the process to get there, and failure, by the way, is a step in the process. I fail every day, multiple times a day. We got to have a good understanding that failure is a step in the process. It doesn't define you. It's not a destination. It's a step. As long as you own your failure, don't make excuses, and ask yourself the right questions. What can I learn from this? Most people, what they do is they make an excuse, blame someone else, and say, why does this always happen to me? Your brain will answer you either way. What can I learn from this? Your brain will go to work. Or why does this always happen to me? Your brain will say, because you're an idiot. So ask yourself the right questions, own your failure. Then it will be a springboard that takes you into your potential as opposed to an anchor that keeps you stuck. Tabs, go for it.
Well, I just want to make one more comment before we go on to tabs, which I do want to talk about, but you've got to be willing to pay the price, because there's a price for everything. And at the risk of, boring the people who saw the 10 o'clock interview, I often quote my coach, and she's an athlete. She went to college on, I think it was lacrosse scholarship. And she talks about that, athletes fail all the time. That think about Olympic athletes. There's only one gold. Everybody else fails. Now, there's a reward for being the silver and the bronze, except there's only one gold. So most people in competitive athletics are failing constantly, except what they do is they get back up off the ground and they dust themselves off and they work harder. And they're willing to put in the work, and they're willing to put themselves through the pain, just like putting yourself in an ice bath. And I've seen videos of you working out in the gym. You work hard, my friend. That doesn't feel good. It feels good when you're done, but it doesn't feel good. Right. It's hard. It's work. So you got to be willing to pay the price. So yeah, please, you use an acronym, TABS, TABS. Could you go into that a little bit? What does that stand for, and why is that important to salespeople?
Yes. So if you're getting the sales, I use a little bit different language, okay, than most people. I use onboarding percentage, not closing percentage. I talk about serving, not selling. The reason I do this, and I get and sometimes I have some people from the Sandler, and I went through 8 years of Sandler, just so you know, will argue with me when they see my content. Words mean things, and a lot of times I work with people who don't have a sales background. So they say, don't worry about if you're so caught up with selling, it's about serving, and you can't ultimately serve someone unless they become your client. So there's steps in the process you follow to be able to serve them at the highest level. So tabs is to keep tabs on what you're doing to know why you're successful or why you're not. So T is technique. Technique is what you say is important, but how you say it is even more important. Okay. It's also can be like a pattern interrupt is a technique. Sometimes I'll have people come to a conversation with me. Well, Joe, this one guy in particular, he reached out to me and he said, and I help people with their marketing on LinkedIn and then their sales. You need both of those to grow your business. He started the conversation. He stopped me as we were just talking. He said, Chaz, I just want you to know before we get going, I really don't have a budget, or if I do, it's a shoestring budget. And so I said, why are we talking? So that is a pattern interrupt, and that is a technique. Now, my intention is to serve him. A lot of times people will be like this. Someone will say something and there's this big freaking elephant in the room, right? And so they're afraid to address it. You got to address that. And so that's a technique to address people to get beyond that. I said that pattern interrupt to him. And he's like, he stumbled around. I said, well, tell me what's going on with your business. So that pattern interrupt disrupts people's normal thinking, because people usually the buyer comes into the conversation wanting to control the conversation. And if you allow them to control the conversation, it's going to end up a mess for you and for them. And I'm not talking about being an authoritarian. I'm talking about being the authority. You've got to control the conversation because you can't serve them unless you do. Okay. So that's a pattern interrupt. That's an example of a technique. Another thing is who has, and you could put in the chat Y or N for no, who has ever screwed up in a meeting?
Why?
Right. So a technique is throwing yourself under the bus. Everyone probably understands that expression. With sincerity and humility, Holly, one of my clients, I was talking to her, and she said, Chaz, I had this guy on the phone. He's signing up. He's giving me my credit card information. Then he got a call. Then all of a sudden he got back in the line. He goes, I got to go. And he started ghosting her. And I said, did you have rapport with him? And she's like, yeah. I go, it doesn't sound like it. So I said, this is what I want you to do. Go to him, call him up, be prepared for voicemail, be prepared to talk to him live, and throw yourself under the bus with sincerity and humility and say, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but Bob, do you have 60 seconds? I want to apologize. Obviously, I did something wrong, and I just wanted to get your feedback, the good, bad, and the ugly from our conversation. Would you be willing to spend 5 minutes on the phone and kind of give me some feedback on this? This isn't about you becoming my client. It's about me getting better. And so he said, sure, I could do it right now. And so he said things that she didn't want to hear. And she said, would you like to join my mastermind Saturday? Just to kind of, get your toes wet and just experience. He said, sure. He became a client. So that was throwing yourself under the bus. Attitude or mindset. If we don't have our attitude and mindset in the right place, ain't nothing going to happen, right? You, Jeff, doing things, wanting to selling those 10 sets during the course of the day? Yeah, you had the mindset that it's just like it was focused on doing and getting done and being successful. It wasn't on, I got to do this. It was like, I get to do this and look at all that I have, not like, oh man, I don't have this and that person does, and I have to do this. So mindset is essential. We can break those down. Behaviors. Everyone knows cold calls, right? If you've been in sales for any amount of time, that's a behavior. I believe it's a terrible strategy. Okay. Behaviors are the things that we have to do consistently throughout the week to get to where we are, to where we want to go. By the way, if someone's not getting results, that's the first thing I look at. What are the behaviors that you're doing right now? And then the strategy. The strategy is the road to get from where you are to your prospect. Cold calling, that's a strategy. Okay, it's like using the telegraph as opposed to using a speed rail. Okay, these days. So we use LinkedIn as a strategy to reach people, and there's certain behaviors in there. So makes sense. Any questions on any of that?
That's perfect. By the way, Valerie Heffron said me, instead of putting in a Y, she said me. She's done that. She also says
thank you, Valerie.
she loves this. So there was something else I really liked that you said, and our earlier interview touched on this just a bit. And I said, oh, this is so exciting because I know Chaz is going to talk about this. What happens when you chase clients?
Yeah. So they run away. They hide. The worst word in sales is not no. People say that. If you ask people in an audience, what's the worst word you want to hear? No. The worst phrase is I want to think it over. Okay. And so oh man, my mind just went to like 5,000 different things. Let's talk about chasing. Okay. I have an Australian Shepherd. She's over in her dog bed over there. And so Australian Shepherds they're herding dogs. So they're meant to be around cattle. They herd them. And so if something runs away, she herds them. So one day, she does this multiple times a day. She'll come and she'll want to play, and I'll take a break. It's been kind of a nice thing to do. If she really wants my attention, she finds my sock somewhere, and she knows she's not supposed to have my sock. And so she'll stay like just out of arm's reach. So I chase her. So one day I'm going to tie this in to everyone that's wondering, what are you talking about your dog with a sock? I'll circle back. So I was chasing her around the house, trying to get this sock. And then wait a second, she's a herding dog. So I just in superior intellect, I just ran away from her. She went to herd me and I got the sock back. It's the same with people you're talking to. If you chase them, they'll either put their walls up They're not going to respond to you, and they won't. So the one way to do this that's equivalent to running away is going for no. Are you familiar? Chris Voss book? Do you like, what's your thoughts on Chris Voss? You like him?
Yeah, he's cool. His stuff is, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So some people like him, some people don't like him. There's some things I agree with, some things I don't agree with. So the one thing that I really like is he's an FBI hostage negotiator, former, and he's wrote a book called Don't Split the Difference or Never Split the Difference. Okay.
Yep, never split the difference.
So he talks about talking about no, and why it's good to get your prospects talking about no, so they're comfortable. The old school thought is get them to say yes, 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 yes. You get 5 yeses and you have a client. I love Dale Carnegie, but that yes, and that's part of his thing, is that's antiquated and outdated. So instead of chasing and try to manipulate and coerce by getting them to say yes, ask them a question about, here's a perfect example. You know, if I schedule a breakthrough strategy session, that's where I go in depth and then they sign up as a client afterwards. I can say the next step, logical step, is to schedule a breakthrough strategy session. That's where we get clarity. And if I can help, I'll let you know. If you're not interested in scheduling this, no worries whatsoever. Just by phrasing that like that, some people are so scared to go for no. People are actually, from the subconscious level, going back to my dog, if they're more likely to come back to you as opposed to chasing them.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love your thought about no. No's my second favorite word in sales. And
what's your first favorite word?
Yes. So yes is my favorite, but if yes is here, no is right here. It's a very, very close second, because I know that it's going to take me a certain amount of no's to get to a yes. And I'm not talking about one particular sale. Not everybody says yes to me. Look, I often say I'm so good at selling that people pay me to teach them how to sell and coach them how to sell. I'm really good at selling, but still more than 50% of the people I speak with choose not to do business with me. In other words, they say no. But I know that it's going to take me 6 no's to get 4 yeses, because that's my ratio. That's an extraordinarily high closing ratio, but I should have one. I'm an expert at this. But it still means that more than half the people I first meet with tell me no. So I'm good with no, but I'm with you 1,000,000%. I hate everything other than yes or no, and think it over is one of the things I hate the worst. No is fine, yes is fine. And I say go for both. And I also suggest, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that when you close, and I hate that word, because when you close something, you really open a relationship. But when you close a deal, actually, I just lost my complete train of thought where I was going with that one.
So you're talking about closing, you're talking about, I use onboarding, and you're just going through, we're just talking about, as far as
no's, the no's and the yeses, doesn't matter.
The no, and then you're going into ask me something else.
Thank you. So make it easy. It's an invitation. That's where I was going with this. And the essence of any true invitation is you're happy when somebody says yes, and you're okay with it if somebody says no. For example, today's Friday. If I was having a big party tomorrow at my house and I said, hey, Chaz, I'd love to have you come over to the beach house. We'll drink some tequila. We'll go to the beach. We'll have a great time. You can bring your dog. My dog will be here. It'll be a bunch of great people. Can you make it? And if you said yes, I'd be like, woohoo, I'm going to get to hang out with Chaz. And if you said no, I'd be,
what time tomorrow is that? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Give me another month when the weather gets warmer, and then we'll be doing it. But yeah, if somebody says no, it's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but maybe next time. You got to be okay with no and happy about yes, but you do want to make it as challenging as possible for people to say anything else, as far as I'm concerned. Easy to say no, easy to say yes, tough to say think it over, anything else. And that's what people want to do, because they have that mindset. Clearly you've studied brain science. People are afraid to make a decision, and they're afraid to make a decision for one reason. They don't want to make a bad one. And the way our brains are wired up is we go to the negative first. If I give Jeff Goldberg some money as a coach, if I hire Chaz, what if I don't get an ROI? What if it doesn't work out? Instead, exactly right. They keep hitting their head on that flea ceiling. By the way, for anybody who doesn't know, he was talking about the bugs, the actual fleas. There used to be flea circuses. And by the way, those things can jump, because I lived with a girl in a basement apartment one time, and there were fleas. A flea can jump from the ground up to your knee.
Yep.
Which is, fleas are tiny. Anyways, let's move on a little bit. Can you talk about something? I love this when I saw that you're so big on it. Can you talk about the intention to serve and the servant leadership mentality?
Yeah, sure. Do you think it would be valuable to talk about the think it over real quick?
Oh,
Because I think it's, and then to circle back to um, the intention to serve. So
absolutely.
everyone, how many people get think it over, think it over, think it over? If people are saying think it over, first of all, there's something that should happen before. See, this is why if someone comes to me and like on a clubhouse or something else and they ask me a question, or my clients, okay, I'm here, what should I do? I will give me some context, because if you don't have, talking about the intention to serve, that is very important. If you don't have rapport, if you have, there's certain steps in the process. But if people are saying think it over, you have to go back before that, because if they're saying that, then something is happening. What I say to my clients is when I get to the end, understand I've uncovered the problem, what it's costing them, how it's preventing them from reaching a goal or objective. You got to have usually a combination of those two, how it affects them directly. There should be some colorful adjectives when they're talking, the decision makers, when they're talking about how that problem is affecting them. This bleep, 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 insert Gary V here, bleep, 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 right? So then once you have that and you present to them, I'll ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being 100% confident, 1 being 0% confident. How confident are you that I can help you solve this problem?
Let's stop for a second, because that was another one of my questions, because I love that you have that in a number of your videos. You consider that the most important question to ask before closing the deal, right? Would you just state it again? Because I think it's
Sure.
beautiful.
Yeah.
You're about to ask for the deal, right?
Yeah, it's about it. So yeah, before I ask this, I go through and price and everything like that. At the end, it always ends a little bit different. Do you have any questions and whatnot? And so I'll ask. Remember, we've gotten to this point, and usually it's an hour conversation. I have a two call process. And some of my clients, we have a more complicated sales process for the corporations, but for what I do, it's a 2 call process. So we get to the end of the second call, breakthrough strategy session, and I say, if you can, please give me some feedback on your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10. And again, I say that in a way, it's like, what do you mean confidence level? Because you want to keep people outside of their normal thought process. And so I'll ask them, like, where are you going with this? And I say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being 100% confident, 1 being 0% confident, how confident are you that our program, me, can help you solve the problem that we just discussed? And remember, they talked about the crap. I've had people crying on the phone and on Zoom. I don't intentionally try to make people cry, by the way. But when you get into go deep and it's about their business, it's emotional. It really is. So on scale of 1 to 10, and if it's not like a strong 8 or 9, some people say 10, then I missed something. So I'll always circle, even if they say 8, I'm like, why not a 10? So you want to unearth those things before I go into price. Most people will go the price and like, okay, Bob, that's great. We're really interested. That sounds great. John, aren't you? Yeah, we're really interested. Tell you what, let's think about it over the weekend. Give me a call Monday morning. There's so many things wrong with that. But anyway, that's the question I ask.
That's such a ballsy question to ask, and which is why I love it so much. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that we can deliver or I can deliver? It's a ballsy question to ask. So I'm curious, what do you do if somebody says 4?
Throw myself under the bus. I do. So this is such a good question. I love this conversation. So if they say 4, I screwed up. Okay. And so you throw it, going back to technique. Remember, the intention to serve with sincerity, and you got to. This is the thing. When I went from selling to serving, and with the right intention, it changes everything. So in my brain previously, my ego would be hurt. I'm like this. I would be defensive. My tone would change, and that would start repelling people because I would react as opposed to responding. And if you go to a doctor, he gives you medication and you react, it ain't good. If you respond, it is. So now I'm able to respond because of my intention. So I'd say, Sally, I just screwed up royally because I thought I was helping you and serving your problem. If I were you, I wouldn't want to work with me. And I just tell them that I would not want to work with me if I have a 4 out of 10. Please tell me what I missed, because obviously I missed something huge. And you doing that, you can resurrect the conversation and touch on some areas, and that puts them in a place of wanting to be open to speak to you. Because you just said you just went through for no. It's like, I screwed up. I wouldn't want to work with me if I were you. And I'm being honest. If I gave someone a 4 out of 10, please let me know what I meant. Is there something I didn't say that I should have said, or maybe something that I said that gives you pause or hesitation?
Yeah. When you said that just now, the billboard, the lighted billboard appeared in my mind and said, honest. He's being so freaking honest with these people. And that kind of brings this conversation back to think it over, because I do something very similar to what you're talking about when somebody tells me they want to think it over. And it doesn't happen often because I'm pretty good at what I do. But, when people have to put money on the line, they get that fear going on. And it's reasonable for people to want to think it over. But when somebody says to me, Jeff, I want to think this over, here's what I say. So if you were my prospect, it would be, Chaz, I get it completely. And I want you to know something. If you need time to think it over, I'll give you as much time as you need. In my professional experience, Chaz, which is pretty extensive, I've been selling for more than 4 decades. When somebody like yourself tells me they want to think it over, it means one of 2 things. The first one is that I've screwed up. I didn't do my job properly. I haven't answered every question that you have. I haven't shown you enough value. And if that's the case, first of all, I humbly apologize because I didn't do my job right. And if you still have questions or something's unclear, I'd sure appreciate it if you ask me right now, because I'm going to answer every question you have, every single one of them. And then I'm going to ask you, how long do you need to think it over? And if you tell me a day, I won't call you till tomorrow. And if you tell me a week, I won't call you until next Friday. And Chaz, I'm telling you the honest truth. If you tell me you need a year, I won't call you for a year. I will not bother you. By the way, Chaz, in my experience, that's the 3% probability. The 97% probability is you've actually already made up your mind that you don't want to do business with me, but you don't want to hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
And here's what I want you to know. My feelings won't be hurt. If you tell me you don't want to do business with me for whatever reason, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to shake your hand. Of course, this was in the pre-COVID days, but I'm going to shake your hand. I'm going to ask you if you know of anybody who I should be speaking with that might have a need for my services right now. And then I'm going to leave. And if you ever change your mind and want to do business with me, I want you to know something. I will be ready for your call and I'll be thrilled to work with you at any time. So Chaz, is it really that you've made up your mind that you don't want to do business with me? And what I usually do is I put a silly smile on it. I throw out my hand. Is it really that you don't want to do business with me? And most of the time they'll go like this. Yeah, that's really it. Great. Thank you so much for your honesty. And then I do shake their hand. I do ask for referrals. And then I leave skid marks in their driveway getting out because I have no time to waste with somebody who's decided they don't want to do business with me. I got to go search for people who do want to do business with me. So I'm with you 1,000,000% here. This is awesome. So let's come back to the servant leadership mentality.
Right.
I love that. I always talk about your come from deep inside your gut has got to be, I'm here to serve you.
Right. So for many years, like when I go back to my Cal Central marketing, that was my first job, in all these companies I worked in 8 different industries, I didn't like what I sold. I didn't, but I was always very competitive. And so I learned the system, the process that was drilled in my mind. And so I was always trying to find things to do better. And then one company, this was Sandler sales training, they were paying for in the 8 years. And that was amazing. And just so you know, Sandler really helped me in selling. We go like this sometimes with the people that see my post, Sandler guys, because they're fixated in their little sphere of influence. And sometimes it's hard to get out of that. I've had like sales training. I have a sales coach today and all these different things that's really opened my mind. So I worked with a guy, this is before I started my business in 2016. who was talking about intention, intention, intention. His name's Mark. No one would probably know him. Brilliant guy. And he became my mentor. And so I took that into my business with the first step to be intention. But it was like a war. And I had a post about this recently. It was like a civil war within me, because I'm having intention to serve and I'm having selling, intention to serve and selling, making a certain amount of money each month. So one month I had, so I understand this was in my process and this is what I was saying, but I still hadn't fully grasped the reality of what I was saying and what I was doing. So 1 month I had a low closing percentage, and my closing percentage right now is 65 for the past 3 months, 65%. I mean, we could talk about, I was going to ask you, is that for everyone you talk to, or is that people you talk to within your one conversation? So there's 2 different ways that we could do that, but it was like a 25% closing percentage. And I've learned to own it. Extreme Ownership, by the way, one of the best books I've ever read. I encourage everyone, by a Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink, is to take ownership of my failure and asking myself the right question. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And I kept asking, what am I doing wrong? How can I change this? How can I make this better? And it was like, boom. It's like an aha moment. I was focusing on making a certain amount of money each and every month. Okay. Sales goal, right? Nothing wrong with that. And so it was just a tiny adjustment. I went from, and if you can see I have my goal thing back there. I just got that fat head in the mail. I like it. I had it like a little sheet over here, but now I have a better visual. I went from making a certain amount each and every month to serving a certain amount of clients at the highest level each and every month. And that was like, whoa. The focus was on serving the clients. As I said earlier, you cannot serve your prospects, prospective clients, however you want to say it, at the highest level unless they become your client. Now, there's going to be some that are bad fits, right? And those are the ones you have the skid marks out of the driveway you're talking about. Next, right? So it just changed. And then the next month, I had like a 70% closing percentage. It happens that quick when you get your mind right, and we go to the mindset that we're talking about in tabs. So serving is about helping people. Remember, not authoritarian, but authority. Here's you and the client, right? Typically, you're equals. Typically, here's or let's say prospective client. Typically, what happens is, here's me, you, we're in the sales role. Oh, thank you so much for talking to me, Mr. Prospect, Mrs. Prospect. We put ourselves in a subservient role. And so, no, we're equals, but you are the authority. And so I can't serve them. They have a problem. They need you. And many times they're praying for you. They're looking, they're searching high and low. Every Sunday evening in their mind are like, crap, I don't have a way to bring new clients into my business. You, who's ever listening to this on the recording or live right now, you serve your prospects and solve a problem. Usually it's like 2 to 3 main problems. You solve this problem so they have peace of mind, so they can focus on other areas of their business, whatever it is you do. And so to serve them, you need to be able to speak to them as an authority and guide and direct the conversation through the process, in the steps, within the system. I use ideology so that you can onboard them. And that's what serving is truly about. Serving isn't like, oh, you don't have a way you're going to go to business if you don't work with me. Oh, okay. That's not serving, because you're not helping them by calling them out of their crap. And then when you call someone out of your crap, if you have rapport, you can do it firmly depending upon their personality type and whatnot. But there are times where you take that pattern interrupt within the right technique to disrupt their thinking, because they're still in their comfort zone, and they're not going to get out of their comfort zone unless you help them, and you got to point them out, and they understand the pain they're in because they're in that little whatever it is. And so that's what serving is all about. That's what I wholeheartedly believe. And where I am today, now my my selling process is in alignment with who I am as a person, because I've always been very generous, and I just had a problem with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And by the way, I got to tell you, I love what you were saying. I love everything you're saying, but I especially love the thing about, you got to be here with the prospect. And most salespeople, it's why I teach salespeople, do not walk into somebody's office or get onto a Zoom call and start out with, thank you so much for your time. You've automatically elevated them and
Right.
lowered yourself. And why would somebody want to do business with you if they're looking down to you? In what you and I do, we've got to be looked at as an authority. Nobody's hiring me as their sales coach unless they believe that I know what I'm talking about. No company's bringing me in to train their entire team unless they think I can actually stand in front of them and deliver some value. And when I start out with, thank you so much for your time, almighty customer, I've automatically said, I'm a peon and you're doing me a favor, which is not the way I feel. In fact, I almost said I feel the reverse, and I don't. I don't look down on my prospects, but I walk in thinking this. And obviously I don't say these words, but my attitude is, I hope you know how lucky you are that I decided that I would have a chat with you today, because I'm freaking awesome at what I do. And if you choose to do business with me and I choose to do business with you, man, oh man, we're both going to be happy. Exactly right. You got to stop. Yeah. Here's what I go for. And by the way, Britannica taught this. Don't leave until the prospect thanks you for your time. When they thank you, now you know you've done something right. So can we move on to another subject?
Sure.
How does one recruit the right type of customer organically?
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot. So LinkedIn, I'll tell you what, if, it doesn't, I used to think when I started my business in 2016, it was B2B only, but it's not. So that's a loaded question. And I can spend 12 hours doing that with a short, medium, and long range process. Let's do something really short. Okay.
We've got 12 minutes.
Okay. So I'll do it in 2 minutes. So here's one thing that you all can do on LinkedIn. And by the way, if we have time at the end, if we create a post with like this, I guess we don't have other people on here like screen share, right? So we can't do that. So never mind about it. I was going to create a post and then we can all share on it. But on LinkedIn, understand it's got the best organic reach, with the exception of Clubhouse. Okay. You can reach people through content. That's not a quick strategy, but it's a medium range strategy. So you got to have content in there, because when you create content that helps people know, like, trust you, and see you as an authority. And do you have a lot of salespeople that watch these, and business owners?
Salespeople.
Okay. So personal branding. The salespeople that are crushing it these days have a personal brand on LinkedIn. People don't buy from companies, like Coca-Cola or something like this. But
Nike.
people buy from people, right? So having a personal brand on LinkedIn, and you will start to reach people. Now, content takes a while, but here's something that you can do quickly. I can go to LinkedIn right now and probably schedule a meeting in 10 minutes. Okay. I can go to Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay. If everyone knows Gary V is, Gary Vaynerchuk, 50% of the people love him, 50% of the people hate him. The reason why I can go to Gary Vaynerchuk's content, you have the content that he shares, and then you have the content that's below his post. And there's a whole world going on down there. And I'll give you a perfect example. If you do a search on LinkedIn, because what do you want to do? You don't want to cold call someone and don't know where they are, or even cold DM someone because they don't know. It's like, oh, because you can send out a lot of messages and get nowhere. But if you reach someone that's in your target market, a decision maker, and you see them talking about a problem they have that you can solve, that's someone that needs to talk to you, right? You can't. So I was in Gary Vaynerchuk's feed, and as I said, I can go in there right now and probably find something and schedule a meeting. Okay. And Gary was talking about, and everyone who's listening to this now or in the replay, you can identify where your audience goes on LinkedIn. 91% of decision makers go to LinkedIn first and foremost before Forbes, Fast Company, all these different online portals. So your audience is going somewhere on LinkedIn. Your decision makers are there. I've already identified that Gary Vaynerchuk is where a lot of my target audience goes. So Gary said that LinkedIn has a great algorithm. You need to use this. Okay. And so I went into his feed, and I just did this as I was creating a training for my clients. And there was a guy in there, David. If we had more time, I'd share my screen, maybe and next time. Gary's talking about content on LinkedIn is awesome. David was like 4 or 5, I don't know, comments down. His comment was this: what's the use? Nobody reads my post anyways. That's what I was kind of thinking about when he was saying that. And so this guy was in pain. I just put my cursor over this. I could see he was a CEO. I reached out to him. I said, I saw your comment on Gary Vee's post. Can we connect? We connected. And then I said, this is something I may be able to help with. Now, when you have your LinkedIn page set up, they'll go to your LinkedIn page and they see how you can solve the problem. That's a key component. You guys can go to Chaz Horn on LinkedIn and learn more and understand what I'm saying in context of this conversation. Okay. So I said, I may be able to help. Now, I use video SaaS products. Dub is a real good one. Vetus is another one. And so I said, I actually sent him a video. When the video ends, it goes directly to my calendar. Okay. So he doesn't have to go off. I don't send a link or anything like this. And I said, David, I may be able to, we couple back and forth with things. I said, I may be able to help. Would you be interested in scheduling a brief call, this 20 minutes? And so I sent him that, and he sent me a message. He goes, give me a call now. I'll talk now. And so we scheduled a meeting. So that's a way for you to organically on LinkedIn identify and then schedule meetings with someone who has a problem. There's a very high percentage of those people that you can take into the next step of the process and bring on as clients. So that's a quick organic strategy that everyone can use.
That's great. Yeah. We met, I don't know if you remember, but through the incredible Joe Apfelbaum.
Yep,
and,
I remember.
Joe
Boom.
Joe taught me that exact same thing. He said, go find the famous sales trainers that are on LinkedIn, because I'm not famous. My mom thinks I'm famous, but I'm not. And there's some people with huge audiences. He goes, go find out what the people who are responding to their posts are saying, and interact with some of them, because there's business in there for you. I think that's a brilliant strategy.
Yeah. What's his name would be one of them. What's that guy's name? Who always records himself walking down the street with his phone?
Isn't that Joe?
Huh?
A sales trainer?
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but he's always recording himself. He's like for a corporate. He has a podcast too. I can't think of it right now.
I don't know. There's a million of us out there. There's no doubt about it. I want to take it in a different, well, we've only got a little time. Damn, I still have 75 questions. This always happens to me. I talk to fascinating people. Can you talk a little bit about emotional intelligence? What is the definition of emotional intelligence, and how does EI affect our ability to be successful when we're selling?
Yeah. First of all, anyone who's listening, is watching this now or on the recording, don't get so hung up like emotional intelligence. How am I going to do this? Emotional intelligence is just this. It's connecting with people based on their motivators and their behaviors. Okay. And LinkedIn is such a great way to understand that, because you can see everyone's activity, whether they're commenting on someone else's post or just from their profile. So within a conversation and getting things started, if a lot of people on LinkedIn are connect and their intention is to sell, they do the opposite of what you should be doing. So if you go with the intention to serve, you're 50% ahead of everyone else. Now, when you incorporate emotional intelligence, I can go to, like, here's an example. A lot of people have like 1, 2, 3 jobs right now. And so if I'm connected with someone like that who's in my target market, we haven't had a conversation and I'm kind of outreach to them cold. So I have a sense, I know they're in my target market, but I don't know if they have a need. To start a conversation, I can say, Jeff, great to be connected with you. You look like one busy guy. I see you work for XYZ company and ABC company. Where do you spend most of your time? See, this is all about them. 3 things happen. It's about getting them to engage. It's about drilling down, uncovering a need, and then scheduling a meeting. So if you get them to engage by doing an assumptive statement, okay, a lot of people will ask a question. An assumptive statement and then ask a question. Typically, the response is a paragraph. and when they're responding like that, and then you can go deeper. So that's a way of using emotional intelligence based on their background, because this guy's working 2, 3 jobs. And it seems like 50% of the people nowadays are doing that. And what do people care about? They care about themselves. So ask about them based on research, which is easy to do. My clients that get good at this using emotional intelligence, 60 seconds, they could send out a message. Typically, when they're good, 10 messages, they're scheduling 1 appointment. Incorporating that emotional intelligence and reaching people with DMs on LinkedIn.
Great stuff.
Direct messages for people who are wondering what a DM is.
Yep. There's something else that you do, which I teach all the time. I call it CAW, C-A-W, which is celebrate all wins. Why do you suggest people should celebrate when they close a deal? Because I've seen some videos with you where you're celebrating after closing something.
Yeah, my dancing video, right?
Actually, there was another one where it looked like the guy was still on the line, and you're like, woohoo! Oh, you're still.
Oh yeah, that guy. Okay, yeah.
Yes, I love the dancing video too.
Okay, so
why celebrate?
Yeah, I tell you what, I struggle with this. I can still be a hypocrite. I tell my clients all the time, you got to celebrate. And that's why I put a dancing video on LinkedIn, because I wasn't following through. So I wanted to show my clients that I'm celebrating. And it's not just when you close a deal. It's like, maybe you got a clear next step, time, date in each other's calendar, you know, who's doing what, when. That's if you're not getting clear next steps and you didn't celebrate. Celebration motivates us to continue moving forward. If you don't, and like I said, I'm not wired because of how I was in my past. And so I'm still conscious, I'm self-aware these days. When you make progress, celebrate, whether it's jumping around, whether it's dancing, whether it's calling someone. I have this, if you have a brag book, a sale or a success journal, write it down. There's going to be days where things suck, and you can open that up and see the successes of your past, and that's going to help you. So when you have down days, you can go back to those successes and celebrations and say, wow, look what I've done. Doing it consistently will motivate you to continue moving forward. If you keep focused on this huge goal out here and don't celebrate along the way, you're going to get burned out and life is going to suck.
Yeah.
Celebrate.
Celebration feels good, and it makes you want to feel good again. And I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, and he calls it anchoring. And Tony's big anchor is, this one. When I close a deal, I certainly do make sure that the customer is off the line, the new client is off the line. But I do this. Yes, I pull it in. And what I find is that if I'm a little flagging at a moment, all I have to do is do a yes, because I've already taught myself that my neuroscience is that when I do yes, I'm celebrating. So if I do it in reverse, I do this, I automatically feel better and I can bring myself right back up. So I love that idea. I want to ask you one more quick question because we're really out of time. But I saw one of your videos where you're exercising like a mofo. What has that real solid exercise? I saw you were lifting and your form is perfect. How does that affect your selling and your business?
Huge. Yeah. In that video, I was talking about, I saw it, seeing my love handle back in 2004, hanging out of my swimsuit on a video with my kids. And so from that point forward, I just started walking around the block and I got in shape. I work out 6-7 days a week now. It helps with stress. It helps with all the different things in being physically fit and exercising. It takes endorphins from a physiological, it puts endorphins into your brain and it just makes you feel good. It's the natural dopamine. It's like you're getting your brain, you have access to a whole pharmacy up here and it's legal. And so exercising brings in those dopamines, endorphins, and it's like, wow, like you said earlier, afterward is when you enjoy it. But when you go in and work out, it's like, oh, I got to do a leg workout today. But I'm looking at what's going to happen afterwards because I'm all with those endorphins and everything are in my brain. So anything that you can do to bring happiness and joy and get those endorphins into your brain, it's going to change your outlook on life. I love work. If I couldn't work out, I'd have to find a way to deal with that, but it would definitely be a huge struggle because it's just a part of my life that helps me with joy, happiness, just having a good outlook. Plus,
It looks like it's
feeling good
working.
and looking good is important.
It looks like it's working because I didn't see any love handles in that video. So you're doing something right, my friend. We're out of time. Would you please tell people who are either watching live now or on the replay, what is it that you do and how can they get in touch with you if they're interested?
Sure. So I show people how to use emotional intelligence and LinkedIn to schedule qualified meetings daily, and then to onboard new clients weekly. And so if you'd like to have a mini call sales audit, I guess the first 5 people that email me at chazhorn@chazhorn.com, chazhorn@chazhorn.com, or you can send me a direct message on LinkedIn. Go to my LinkedIn profile to learn more. Just search Chaz Horn and you'll find me there.
I'm typing it into the comments right now.
Yeah, we'll have a 20-minute conversation, and I can point out quickly why what you're doing isn't working, and if I can potentially help, then we can schedule a more in-depth conversation if you're interested. And if not, I can always give you something that would help you. So schedule that meeting. The first 5 people, I'll do that, and I look forward to talking with you. As I said, I'm not going to pitch you. That's not how I operate. It's about having a relationship and understanding and seeing if it makes sense for not only you, but for me to move to the next step.
That's great. I urge salespeople to get that word pitch out of their vocabulary. I hate it. Is there a phone number they can reach out to, Chaz?
You could text me at this number, 816-914-5127, and just put Jeff. Jeff's Facebook Live or something like that. So I know who you are, then obviously mention your name. So I know that.
I
have some correlation in my mind. It's like, who is text? Because I get a lot of texts from people like, who is this?
All right, I've got your email and your text number in the chat. Chaz, thank you so much for your time and your brilliance. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you will do it again with us.
Yeah, this is awesome. I love just having this conversation and cutting up because you have different things. Because the cool thing is people get value out of it. I know that word gets overused. They get practical information that they can apply to their life from 2 guys that are doing this day in and day out.
Absolutely, 100%. And as I end all of these, sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there, everybody, and make sales happen. Thank you, Chaz. Thank you, everyone.
All right.